And a very warm welcome, everybody. Fabulous to see you again on this Thursday evening for Kaizen Central. Thank you for being with us. I hope you've all had a great week. Don't tell us if you've had bad weeks. I don't think we can take any bad news anymore. But anyway, I hope you're all surviving and thriving, and that's what matters. I'm delighted to see so many people here this evening. Forgive me, I find it very difficult to talk and admit people at the same time. I should be better at this by now, but I'm not. But I sent out a note earlier asking if people had any burning issues they wanted to raise, and I suggested we could talk about the innovative things that are out there that we just don't know about, any ideas that you're hearing about which are game changers. I mentioned one that had been that I'm doing a story on tomorrow on behalf of Innovate UK, which absolutely knocked my socks off. I just thought it was amazing. Also, to discover whether you had any thoughts around the announcement today of more funding for Made Smarter. We knew it was coming. Whether we think 8 million is going to be enough, I'm intrigued to hear from those of you who are in the business of advising manufacturers on digitalization. Whether you think Made Smarter is doing the trick and whether 8 million is enough. But those are just two thoughts I had. Has anybody got any thoughts of their own that they want to bring to the table? I've muted everybody, so do unmute before when you raise your hand. But anybody got any thoughts they want? Yeah, Adrian, hello, good evening.
Yeah, hi Nick, and hi everybody else. You probably know I do the photography for Made Smarter, and certainly this year everything's been cut because of COVID, as in it's not been happening. So I can only assume that there's a fair amount of money that's left in the pot. So is 8 million a top up? If it was only 8 million for all those areas, well, it doesn't sound very much. But when I think of the fact that there was a certain amount of money allocated for the part of the job I was doing, obviously only a little bit of it has been used because we've not got access. It's all relative to what's left in the pot.
Yeah, this is cash for spreading it beyond the Northwest. It's going into Yorkshire, Northeast, and I believe West Midlands. That's a fairly chunky amount of manufacturers in those places. I think they're looking to help about 1,000 businesses. Sarah, maybe you'd like to comment because you're very much in the business of helping companies digitalize. I mean, I don't think we say 8 million here, 8 million there. Sooner or later, you're talking real money. But I mean, it's not hugely expensive to go through this. It's more important is the advice and the hand holding that goes with it, I think. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. And I think I was disappointed because my understanding was that the program was going to roll out further across the UK. I suppose I would say that, but obviously it's just stopping at the West Midlands, but there's still a big manufacturing base in the south and doesn't seem to be the money for that. I think the lessons learned from certainly the people that I've spoken to that have been running the Made Smarter is at the beginning, it took even with the money there, it took an awful long time to get manufacturers to come forward. So I think hopefully there are going to be some lessons learned about how you sort of promote this out. And I think then it's also about the practical and pragmatic help that's also going to be given, because certainly there's a lots of talk about all of the more exciting and sexy digital technologies, but certainly the base of small to mid-sized manufacturers that I'm involved in, there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done in terms of some of the basic process improvement before the technologies can really be optimized. That's what I see.
Yeah, I've heard that so often that it's you can't just sort of slap a digital solution on top of an existing structure. The structure needs to change to accommodate it and be made smarter. Phil Kernock, did you raise your hand because you wanted to say something, or were you just saying good evening?
Yeah, it's only a quick comment really. Sarah, I agree with Sarah actually. So I do a little bit of work for a company called Value Chain, who are in the Northwest and actually are one of the partners on the Made Smarter program. And I think the challenge comes from a number of areas. One, from putting my MD CEO hat on of SMEs in the past, I think it's all about ROI. It's all about return on investment. The challenge around that and making sure that the company owners understand that ROI in all the different aspects of digital, and making sure that their digital journey, they recoup their money very quickly on the journey and reinvest it back in again. So you're getting into that cycle of investment going through on the digital journey. I think that's absolutely critical. Having run industry programs in the past, the other bit of evidence that I don't see enough of is actual case studies. You go on the Made Smarter website and there are lots of advanced engineering case studies. Not many in aerospace, one or two companies in aerospace, and aerospace is a big sector in advanced engineering. So it's obviously not penetrating enough into those areas, but that's my two observations. But
does anybody else have anything to say about whether the argument about ROI for digital has been won or not made properly? It's almost like it feels like anybody who hasn't got that going digital in all but an obvious handful of cases is the way to go forward. Do you think that the ROI argument has been made, or has it yet to be made, as Philip just suggested it might? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Yeah, Adrian, go.
Yeah, I think it's rather a drip situation. I know what Phil says about the case studies. I think in all fairness, that had we not had the COVID, I would certainly have been on site, and I'd have probably done at least 12.5 case studies by now across a whole range of industries. So that opportunity has certainly been lost. But also what Sarah said about the taking a long time for people to take it up. I mean, I'm aware that there hasn't been 100% uptake from it. So maybe not enough people actually know about it. And if not enough people know about it, well, how can you uptake it? You can't apply for something you don't know about.
Yeah, but I have to say, I mean, in defence of the Made Smarter program generally, whether it's the Commission, which Jürgen Meyer heads up, or whether it's the growth company that manages it up in the Northwest, managing the Northwest pilot. I mean, it's difficult to say because obviously I'm media, so obviously I've been writing stories, I've been doing stuff. I've even did a case study up in Liverpool, a video case study a couple of years ago now. But we've been writing about this. I interviewed Jürgen Meyer 4 years ago on this, and when it was first announced, and I'd be amazed if people weren't aware it's out there. But I suppose my focus is obviously hugely different from that of an everyday manufacturer trying just to keep the wheels turning day in day out and hasn't got their eyes on it all the time. Is anybody else feeling that Made Smarter isn't sufficiently high profile in the manufacturing community? Yeah, Adrian, Adam, sorry. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Some of the thing for me around is the awareness is that the manufacturers, we tend to stay in our four walls. We'll look at and read stuff that is pertinent to what is on our mind at that particular time, as with anybody will. So the awareness side is you've got to put it in front of them all the time and build that awareness around that. So, you know, if we've got case studies out there, we've got to be tracking, are we directing people to those case studies? Because putting a case study out there in a digital world doesn't mean to say people are going to read it. You've got to put it in front of them. You've got to target them. And therefore, as you, again, in a sales point of view, you've got to walk them down that path of that customer journey into that arm and show them what needs to be done and what can be done. The return on investment, absolutely. Any manufacturer that's going into it needs to understand the return on investment. So there is a consultancy side that needs to be looked into around what is the benefits, because at the end of the day, if we're going to do it, we've got to do it, and we've got to do it properly and get the return on investment. We're not good at promoting. Me and Steve have just been, where is he? He's on here. Me and Steve have just finished talking, having a chat for an hour just before this meeting around saying we're not good at promoting. You know, I've worked with a manufacturer recently that didn't know what funding was out there, and we've got funding for it. Capital funding for machines and other stuff as well. Some stuff for the digital marketing side. We've got to put it in front of them. Just putting something out there and posting like on social media and that side, great organic flow, but it's a long-term strategy. If you want to direct, you've got to push it in front of them. So that is paid advertising on that side by keyword element and searching in some respect. So it is a hard one because, you know, we only are interested what we are interested in. So if it's not on the radar, you won't touch it. You won't read it. So if you don't know, you don't know. So you won't look for it.
Sarah, can I just ask Sarah one more point, because you are directly in this marketplace. Is your sense that the companies you talk to and approach have the awareness, or are you having to sort of take them from 5 steps back before they even get to the awareness threshold?
That's vary. I think some companies that are aware of certain technology, so I'm talking specifically about ERP software because that's the main software that we're involved in, you know, are aware because perhaps somebody else has implemented that system. They've been personally referred and they have that conversation. Sometimes they're trying to sort of jump 5 steps ahead, and that's why I said it's all about making sure that they've got, you know, the right processes. A lot, I think, to Adam's point, a lot are not aware of the help that's out there, and particularly the different sort of funding schemes. And I know we've spoken before about funding being a bit of a lottery scheme, so it is varied. But there's still a lot of manufacturers that are quite intimidated by technology, the industry 4.0 buzzwords, and they say to me, we don't really know what that means for our business. These are some of the real challenges and issues. How can you really help me put those to bed? How can technology help me?
Sure.
Steve Murphy.
Yeah, I've just during networking, so over the past month, I've spoken to probably a couple of smallish companies who have very, very useful tools, things like little visual specification systems that allow people to move from one machine to the next and have a quick update on how to run the machine. So those sort of automated work instructions. But thinking about it, it's not always obvious to me with some of this stuff that leads to be making life easier, that the information would exist to do a good ROI, and that maybe they might even be a bit nervous about doing an ROI, because to do an ROI you might have to have collected data on scrap events due to people not understanding the work instructions or not being able to find them. So it's not obvious to me that it sounds easy to do, but I think some of the companies would struggle with putting an ROI together. And sometimes when you put an ROI together, it only makes benefit as well if you use the freed up time that you make. So if you've got some sort of paperwork type system and you free up a person, it might just about cover itself, but it really makes a lot of benefit if you then use that person to drive further continuous improvement. So it's not obvious to me that ROI is one of those things that SMEs will pick up and be able to say, yeah, it's obvious we can do that. They might need some help with it.
Sure, and I think, to be fair, that Made Smarter and there are a lot of people out there like Sarah who are offering consultancy. Mark Amphlett, we've got a new Spitfire system up and running, which business rather up and running, which we can talk about. But Ben, you raised your hand. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think case studies are key because digital is such a huge area. There's the manufacturing side of it, making your plan more efficient. There's things like additive manufacturing. There's the industry 4.0. There's digital marketing. And there's so many different terms out there. But if people see case studies saying company A did this and achieved this, and they're going to be able to relate to that, particularly if they're sector specific. Because if they see something they can relate to with another business getting a positive result, they're going to say, yeah, I want to follow that too.
Okay. Mark, yeah, hi, good evening.
Yeah, following on from what Ben said there, and Sarah would agree with this as well. Getting new digital technology into manufacturers is essential. It helps their efficiencies, it helps increase their profitability, it helps their professional appearance in front of their customers. But I was interested to hear about the funding that's available. I don't know where that funding is available from. If Sarah's selling a system or if I'm selling a system, and we can say, look, go to these people and get some funding for this, it's more likely to generate the business. At the moment, yeah, the pandemic, everyone's kind of holding back on a lot of stuff. So the funding side of things could be a real help for our sort of services to help inject some digital technology into some manufacturing companies out there, especially SMEs who may be struggling for funds at the moment. So yeah, finding the money, finding the funding for this is essential, I think, and I don't know where to go for it.
That's interesting. Lee, you mentioned in the chat box that you've applied for some DOSH from DIT. Am I correct in saying that? Sorry, you're just settling down. Sorry to embarrass you. He's walking the dog by the look of it. Because there are pools of funding out there, and I didn't realize that the DIT might be one source. Tell us about it, Lee.
I have to say, for a government organisation, I have had excellent levels of communication and support. Not just fill in this form. This is what you can apply for. My job is to help you fill in the form and tick the boxes so you get what you apply for. Now, MCNC, we're located in Bridgewater in Somerset, the Southwest, and there's an organisation called Heart of the Southwest, and I believe they've got some sort of LEP program going. Now, in conjunction with the Department of Industry and Trade, to assist companies to raise their profiles internationally is the main key here, not nationally, but internationally. They are match funding up to £9,000 to enhance companies' marketing and create awareness for them. Now, in my case, I became aware of this because being an engineering geeky nerd that's interested in all sorts of different things, have been following the DIT because I read a paper about a joint venture with the States. Subscribed to their newsletter, kept abreast of it, and there was a program where UK supply chain was invited to attend a conference with Boeing. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it all got postponed and it's still ongoing, but it should have happened last April. So I've applied for it to assist with raising MCNC's awareness internationally. Now, that can mean, we've mentioned digital marketing, websites, ERPs, MRPs, CRMs, software, whatever you want to do, you can apply for it. I'm applying for assistance with not so much the marketing digitally, I'm applying to help funding to get me to the States to pay for accommodation, to arrange meetings, support with meetings, more importantly, funding to arrange meeting rooms and conference facilities, to engage with potential foreign clients. Yes, they're from the States, but because we've diversified, this is also going to help me make the most out of the trip, because we have potential customers in the oil, gas, stroke energy sector based in Texas. So financially speaking, airfares, hotels, transportation, meeting rooms, support with speaking to the people and arranging these meetings is all encompassed within this grant. So if MC&C spend, it costs 20K, we get 9K. It's a ceiling of 9K, 50% match funding. I also know of other companies that applied on the Friday and the money was in the bank on the Monday. And I know this because I'm in a peer network group of the SWAMAS, the Southwest Manufacturing Advisory Service. We meet every fortnight, and there's a right diversification of manufacturers from food, textiles, all sorts of different things. And 2 of them have had digital assistance with upgrading their current websites to be able to cope with the demand for online shopping. Others have had assistance with just purely marketing and research. So I advise all of you to get in touch with your local DIT rep. Just go on Google Department of Industry and Trade, whatever region you're in, Advanced Engineering Representative is their titles, and get in touch with them. I can't believe how engaging they are and willing to support companies. We're a small outfit, but because of some of the things that we're doing in the space sector and the defense sector, our profile is literally starting to raise. And the way I see our strategy going forward as a company in this ever demanding market is to diversify to the extent of, let's not just look within Somerset and then the Southwest and then the UK. It's a digital world now. It's a global world. It's easy to do business with somebody in Australia, somebody in Thailand. As a sales guy, a business development manager, the world is your oyster, cheesy saying, but there's plenty to go after there. And I've got to go back to Mark and Ben's comments that you don't know about this until you just have a glass of wine and start digging and trawling and putting in some donkey work. And the problem is there's so many regional organizations. And why isn't Make UK telling everybody about this?
Okay, right. Thank you very much, Lee. That was a really interesting roundup of your experience. I thought that was fascinating, and so good to hear of a process that it feels particularly. I don't mean to be down on the government. We all know, civil servants, it's not civil servants, but the civil service ways can be quite tricky. But that sounded fantastic. Graham, you wanted to throw your 2 pence in.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Well, am I muted? No, I'm not. One of the problems is, it's been touched on already, Adam put it in the chat, and similar to what Ben said, is SMEs don't understand what Industry 4 is and what digitalisation can do in a large part. I mean, I know the owner of a business not far from me, and he was telling me the story when a guy came in to sell him some connected equipment and things like that. And he wasn't sure. He said, why would I want this? And the chap told him, well, you can see from your office desk exactly what's going on the shop floor. Well, this friend of mine says, well, I can look out my office window and see what's going on the shop floor. It couldn't, it was being badly sold, actually. And I think that's the problem. You've got people out there selling the technology to hook it up and all the interfaces, and they're technically competent, but they don't understand the usage of it. And that's why I think when Ben said, case studies would help, I fully agree with that, because then people can see actually what it does.
I think you're spot on with that. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? Because I love to tell stories, and case studies make great stories to tell. Sam, you had a thought to throw into the pot, I fancy.
Yeah, I had more of a question, to be honest. How is it allocated, and how is it all kind of being advertised, or how was it in the previous route? Because to me,
it's made smarter.
Yeah, to me, being able to support 1,000 companies, and I think one of the quotes, I was looking at the Gov website earlier, saying that there's 14,500 just in the West Midlands. Doesn't seem like a lot that they're going to be able to support in the new areas. So I'm just intrigued, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the Made Smarter Challenge Fund, and I'm not exactly certain how that works, but that is 147 million. I mean, that's the big one. The Adoption Fund is for, as we were saying, match funding and free advice and consultancy. Stephen Barr, he's hasn't been with us for a few weeks, and he sends his apologies. But being a direct Made Smarter consultant, he would be able to answer a lot of this. You're right to say that, and Sam, and I must admit, I wondered at that when I heard there was an announcement going to be made this week. I was sort of thinking, oh goody, we're talking large lumps here, but it didn't seem very much. But I think that they Made Smart has done a good job up in the Northwest, which is where they ran the pilot. And they keep having to chip away and make the case at Bays and at the Treasury to get more out of it. I'm actually hosting a panel for Made Smarter with people like Jürgen Meyer and Stephen Phipson and Donna Edwards, who ran the Made Smarter Northwest pilot, in a couple of weeks. And it's going to be really interesting to see. I think it's kind of like a milestone for them. It's event on March the 10th. And that's going to be interesting to see quite how all this is couched then, because for all the reasons that you've all stated, I think there's some very, very interesting things to look at going forward. And I will keep bashing the gong for telling more stories and getting the word out there. And I think, as Adam said very pertinently, no point saying it once and assuming everybody's heard you. You've got to find the people you want to talk to and go and stick it in front of their noses, and then maybe then they'll pick up on it. You've got a point on that, Adam.
Yeah, the thing for me is if you go back to, I think it was a gentleman named Eugene Schwartz, 1966, wrote a book called Breakthrough Advertising. There's the 5 levels of awareness. And I wrote a blog on it recently. We have most aware, product aware, solution aware, problem aware, unaware. And each one of them, the message is different and the story has to be different. And that's the sales funnel. It's referred to as the sales funnel now. And we walk people through it. So you have to be aware of this in sales. Sales is a human behavioral process. We buy on emotion. We then apply a logic after. And we have to be aware of these messages and the levels that we walk through. It is a customer value journey, and you've got to target around that.
Yeah, David. Good evening.
Evening, everyone. Just perhaps take on that point, Adam, about buying, deciding with emotion, justifying with logic. But I think, for me, my experience is that what's got why people are in the industries, because there is a love for technology and mechanization and automation that is kind of in our psyche as manufacturers. And I think that's not, the return on investment is, there's also that aspect where people want to grow up in high-tech companies. They want to be involved in the latest technology. And the young talent coming in wants to be in a modern factory. I think that is also something to say. So if you want to retain the best habit, you want to give them the environment where they're going to thrive and feel they're part of cutting edge. And even if it's break even, it's worth doing because it gets you on the digital journey and so on. And I certainly think that's part of also supporting maybe younger people in the organization. They have an idea. Could we automate this? Could we digitize this thing? Give them a free hand and see where they take it. And perhaps just for the fun of it, I'd put it out there just for the fun of it.
one of the things that intrigues me, and I remember talking to somebody at Megit. He was the chief executive of Megit about 3 years ago. And he was saying that effectively they were going to mandate to their supply chain that they had to all be digitally connected, and that they all had to adopt digital technologies. So in other words, there we had a tier one supplier, a very large company, saying that anybody who wants to work with them had to go digital. Rolls-Royce was saying the same 3 or 4 years ago, PLC. Right. The only person I can see who's of a similar size company, Mr. Howarth at Airbus. Does Airbus have any supply chain policies about digitization, digital technologies, connectedness, in other words?
Yeah, we're not going down the route of trying to force people into particular tool sets or whatever, but we have got an extended enterprise solution where we can extend our digital factory into their premises, which can then draw their data out and bring it into our system. However, I would say it's early days yet. It's my day job is rolling that out for defence and space. Although I'm not so involved in the extended enterprise, I'm more involved in the design and manufacturing part of it. But it's certainly something we're looking at. But I think it's a real big mistake to start pointing at small suppliers and saying that they should do this or that. And you know, most of our suppliers are spread around the world, so you know, it's just not feasible for our particular part of the business. But extending our premises into their premises is something that we are trying to do.
That's really interesting. I'd like to hear more about that as that develops. And I agree with you. I think PLCs and you know, large companies like Megit and so on, sort of coming on a bit sort of heavy about this. I don't know. I mean, Lee, you've got your hand up. I just wondered, has anybody ever said to you as an SME engineering house that you had to get on board or get off?
No, and I'm dealing with a first tier prime and a prime at the moment. And unfortunately, we are more technologically advanced than they are. And the benefit of being an SME is we are more flexible and more adaptable and easy to change than very large organizations. Now, to give you an example, we are, and I've got to be very, very careful what I say, but needless to say, we have to use a forum where our customer uploads data. We log in and download the data. First instance, our firewalls are ringing alarms everywhere. Now, to give you an idea and cut to the chase, you must use Internet Explorer to operate this. And the next Windows update, it's being made obsolete. So our IT tech gurus, and I'm not an IT guy, so forgive me if I get any terminology wrong, but in layman's terms, he's saying, tell your customer to find a more safer and secure way of transmitting data, because we have had to relax our firewalls to allow their emails to come through to our systems.
Amazing. So can I go to Simon in Washington? Because Simon, you're in the data business. You're working with huge pharma companies around the world. Is this your experience of there being a mismatch between the what am I trying to say here? Digital awareness and the levels thereof?
A couple of very simple examples. Very, very large, very well known, in the news at the moment, pharmaceutical company when Windows, when Microsoft announced that they were going to no longer support Windows 95, this company said, we will do it internally. Right? And anyone who knows anything about IT knows that that is just, I mean, a nightmare.
When was this? Last year?
No, more, a little bit longer ago. But I had a situation where one of the products that we sell is a graphical data analysis package, and again a very large pharmaceutical company. The people wanted to buy it, but they then realised that they couldn't buy it because all of the screens that they owned in the entire corporation were at a lower resolution level than they were still running VGA 3 years ago. That was their standard resolution. So yeah, not at all uncommon to be in the situation where we are saying to these big companies, this is secure data, this is private, personal health information, which is protected by just about every data privacy law anywhere in the world, has to be moved around in a very, very secure manner. And a lot of companies still aren't actually geared up to sending data outside the company. Inside the company, they've got their own systems, but moving data, either sending it out or in many cases bringing it in, they just don't have the capacity. It's not all of them, obviously.
Oh, sorry, Phil. You obviously have experience with this at Value Chain.
Yeah, a couple of areas really. I used to work at Airbus at Filton for a number of years, so I was procurement manager there long time ago, 30, 40 years ago. But I've worked with Rolls-Royce and in all the OEMs, and there is a major problem for the OEMs in digital and keeping up the speed, the agility. Lee talked about agility. SMEs are very agile, responsive. OEMs have got major corporate IT systems that they put embedded in place over a number of years. They roll out hundreds of hardware and equipment, and then technology moves on very quickly. And they got that challenge to reinvest that back in again to keep up with the pace. So that's a big challenge. Good example, the Hydrogen Summit we ran at West of England Aerospace Forum a couple of weeks ago. There were 3 OEMs that were speaking on that Zoom conference, and right up to the wire, they couldn't get through their firewalls in their OEM systems to actually speak on it right to the very last second, and they almost didn't make it. And it's the same for MOD. MOD have got the same challenge. A lot of the DSR teams cannot speak out. They cannot go on Zooms. They're just not allowed to. So it's a major challenge for the OEMs in the UK to keep up the speed of technology, because they've got a vast amount of people in the organizations. And we're finding a lot of people in the OEMs cannot reach out through technology, through their systems at all. And they're just sat in goldfish bowls.
Richard Hagan, up there in Rochdale, you are a very strong advocate of adopting digital technologies. You work closely with Made Smarter. Picking up this point about agility, I think that is there not a competitive advantage to be had for smaller companies in being able to get ahead of the game?
Absolutely perfect. It's interesting being a fly on the wall listening to this conversation today. Yes, Crystal Doors, I was with Jürgen Meyer giving the presentation at the launch, and that's when I first met you, Nick, isn't it? Quite some years ago. I will be on the panel on I think it's the 18th of March, and so is Ben, who's our digital transformation manager. He's got a master's in robotics. We've then taken on another guy who's got a degree in ethical hacking. All of it has been funded by Made Smarter. We've now got 30 grand off them so far. So it's very, very easy to get the money. The difficulty that they had, I shouldn't really say it, but I will, is they got 20 million. 10 million was just for promotion to actually run the system, and 10 million was for the actual companies. That's how difficult it's been to get through to people. On the point of what you're saying, Nick, absolutely. The only reason why Crystal Doors won the Eddie Award, the IEM Award, and nailed absolutely everybody, big companies, small companies, is because a small company can be completely agile. And when you've got the owner of the company hell-bent on getting to #1, it was easy to succeed. So next we're going to hit B Corp. Hopefully we'll get the Queen's Award. Hopefully we'll then be at COP26. Yes, we are a shooting star. So it's very exciting. We have the same. There's some large companies, and they're absolutely so backwards in their ability to be able to do anything because it's the change of a large structure. The research and development department, the amount of money they can throw, they've got specialities, but what they haven't got is that agility. Hence, we understand fully about Tesla, who just walked straight through and took the market away from them. From my point of view, though, let's have a quick straw poll. Who's got an electric vehicle, 100% electric vehicle? There we go. So we're all going to have electric vehicles come 2025, 2030. We're all manufacturers, loving technology, and not one of you, apart from me, who's jumped on it straight away. I've got 2 now. Next one. Who's vegetarian or vegan? Excellent. I'm glad I've got 3. We're up to 3 so far. Once again, watch The Game Changer. It's scientifically proven now. The gladiators in the Roman times, they knew about it. It's manufacturing, marketing, which is what we're talking about, exactly what Adam said. They've got the marketing. Coca-Cola, the brown fizzy water company, is bad for you. Yet because they spend $4 billion on marketing, everybody around the planet believes it's wonderful stuff. Yeah. And this is where we've got the biggest difficulty, is this understanding of data. And nowadays we're streamed with so much data, it's hard to filter out. I got rid of my BBC license payers 4 years ago. I try and avoid the news. I have to live in a bubble to just pick out the news that I want, because if I listen to the media, sorry, Nick, but we've got to listen to the right media, because we can be misled slightly.
I am the right media.
Exactly. That's the reason why I'm here and not watching whatever on TV. Is picking out the right information, and this is where a lot of the SMEs is Greater Manchester. I've seen the white paper, they'll launch it later. There's 6,000 manufacturers in Greater Manchester, and they're scared stiff. Yes, they're not willing to take on IT. They're not willing to take on one. So I asked 2 simple questions. The problem with Industry 4.0, now digital transformation, is you've got such a wide array of toys to play with. You've got such a wide range of every company is unique. How do you dovetail? This is the right one for you to make it fit. And then you have an arena of consultants who will then say, well, it's this because that's what they want to sell. So it's hard to get independent advice. And even Made Smarter, which theoretically is independent advice, people are still turning it down or just slamming the door in the face. I can remember trying to work for the Info Group to try and get people on a free course. And as soon as you sort of said certain words, they just switched off. It's you know, I don't want to listen to it. And that's what I'm saying is about vegetarian, vegan, is you will not want to listen to it. You'll just automatically switch off and go, I love my bacon. I love my roast pork for Sunday lunch. That's tradition. That's what we do. Where unfortunately me, I've got a very black and white brain. Look at the information and no emotion attached to anything. And then it's just clear. That's what I'll do. I'll change my mind straight away. Unfortunately, we've now got, our factory is almost like a university. The latest one we've done is we've just got through for free from Made Smarter is 35 mobile phones, because I knew I could get some technology onto those mobile phones. I came up with 26 ideas. We've now got 39 applications on a mobile phone. If you think you're doing machine learning, we're now doing human learning. We're trying to integrate, we're doing an online platform where the customer can order it. It automatically works out the optimization even when new product comes in. It then automatically knows if a machine breaks down how to then get round it. But we've now got the employees knowing when to do maintenance, what to do with the training, that they've done the health and safety, that we know they've clocked in, that we know that they can book the holidays. They can do everything from the mobile phone now. So it's not just a platform. It is tap it here, do this. Everything's getting digital. But if you said that to a big company, oh, we haven't got money to do that. And it's becoming a bit of a what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Well, I think if anybody needs to charge their electric vehicle, were they to own one, you just need to plug it into Richard. I reckon you'd get twice. Well, you are a star in our firmament, Mr. Hagan, and you are brilliant. So, and when all this is over and I can get out, I had my vaccination the other day, by the way, so I'm halfway there. I'll be getting a set of wheels and coming up to Rochdale and talking to you about all this because it's
please do.
fascinating.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any thoughts out of that wonderful stream of consciousness from Richard? Because I think he spoke a lot of truth there, Ben.
Yeah, it's just an interesting point. It would be so great if everybody had your mindset, Richard. We'll have to bottle it and sell it. But, you know, I had an opportunity yesterday for a marine business to get about 4K funding. And they so need it. I know them. I chatted to them and they're just like, wow, the order book's full. We don't really want to give the time to it. Guys, it's free money, but the opportunities. But people have to understand the benefits. And some people, you completely get it, but other people, it's just it's different, and they're reluctant to embrace it.
Yeah, Alec, you've dealt extensively overseas, and you've lived in China, and you've had a factory in China. What's your experience of working with the Department of International Trade and keep it clean?
Okay. Yeah, I think there's some summation of that is we've done it in spite of them, not because of them. We've not been very successful at getting a lot of help out of certainly the DIT. I'd love to know Edward Lee. I've just Googled while we were on tonight trying to find out who's my advisor for the West Midlands for advanced manufacturing. And there's nothing on Google. So, I think there's part of the confusion over the whole funding issue for SMEs. It's okay to criticise us, but it's such a minefield. There's so many different competing programs. So how are we supposed to know what we're supposed to be applying for? In terms of Made Smarter, we're part of one of the Made Smarter projects, which is working with Baxi and Siemens on a servitization digital demonstrator. We deploy additive manufacture, CNC manufacturing, but then we're also creating Industry 4.0 auto-tuning digital rice mill, where we're taking real-time live information out of our machines and then reconfiguring machines in real time to optimize performance. Again, the value from that far exceeds any value we can get from improving the digitalization of our manufacturing. We're also deploying HoloLens to augmented reality remote commissioning, so we can now troubleshoot and service or commission machines in any part of the world from Birmingham using the HoloLens system with live data on the HoloLens coming off the machines. So we might be a small company, but in terms of digitalization, we're kind of pushing the boundaries. But we do that. We've had a lot of support from Innovate UK on that, the Industry 4.0 project. But yeah, it's kind of tough. And actually looking at what's out there and trying to understand where to go to get it. So that's our challenge. In terms of China, our factory in China is not digitized at all. They have a CNC machinery, but they don't really understand the concept of CNC. They make 10, then they'll go off and do something else, and then they'll come back sometime later, a couple of weeks later, make another 10 or something like that. So the consistency is, I said, look, it's not that you get it wrong. If you get it wrong the same every time, that would be helpful. We could cope with that. It's the randomness of the wrongness that's the problem. So I think, and maybe that applies here as well, just having the technology doesn't necessarily solve the problem if you can't use the technology. So these are some of the challenges we face.
Interesting. Now, I asked you about the DIT, not just because of what Lee had said, pardon me, but I did an interview earlier this week with a chap called Victor Edwards from Gwaza in Shrewsbury. They're an agricultural machinery supplier, manufacturer and supplier globally. I mean, they export everywhere, and his business with the EU has just been thrown off a cliff because the exports, the new export system that they put in place, the government put in place, keeps crashing, and it's just not. He says we're used to the paperwork. We're not worried about the paperwork. It's the actual digital systems that the government put in place are completely inadequate. I don't know if anybody else has had any experience of trying to export since January the 1st, but as I say, he was very eloquent. It got to the point when he said, if I see another advert from this government telling business to get ready for Brexit and do everything, he said, I'm going to kill myself. And the first time anybody's ever said that to me on a video interview. I thought that was quite interesting. Anybody else had any issues with exporting since January the 1st? Yeah, Steve. Sorry, Mark, beg your pardon. Mark, okay, go ahead, Steve.
It's not exactly exporting, but I've been through the government websites on how do I, if I go over to do a bit of training or something like that, then if I were to work in Europe as a consultant for 3 days a month or something, it's really not sure. It's really not clear what my status is at the moment. If I go on the government website, it just seems to send me around in circles. I start off at one, and I go to 3 or 4 different places, and then come back to the original one. And I don't even know what my status is. For example, were I to provide services over the internet, so if I were to provide training to Europe over Zoom, I've not actually been able to find out anything from the government or anybody I know what my actual status is there. Now, there is an obvious solution, sort of working under the radar, as it were, but I would like to be legal, as it were. I would like to know, but so that's my jackanory. I'm afraid it's. I'm sure I'll find out in the end. But
yeah, when the clank of handcuffs and chains, we'll see you dragged off to jail for being sub rosa. Mark.
I was just thinking that today I spent probably an hour and a half doing some government training on exporting to Northern Ireland. Quite a lot of that training was being told that the legislation still wasn't defined, would be defined, and would all change during this year. I then spent a fair bit of my afternoon filling in paperwork to export to Northern Ireland and Ireland. So a thoroughly unproductive day with yet more fear of what's coming, as I'm being told that it's all going to change anyway. So yeah, exporting is a very, very sore subject at the minute for me, and particularly frustrating as we're talking about exporting to Northern Ireland, which I thought was part of the United Kingdom, is where my daughter does a degree, but apparently no.
Yeah, and don't forget that there's the import controls have all been waived until April the 1st. So anybody importing as of April the 1st is going to have to go through a new world of pain as well. So Mark, you import a lot of stuff as well, so that's going to hit you twice, isn't it?
I'm almost not doing any business now. I'm just spending all my time just trying to chase goods in, get goods out, and look after my customers. Selling, there's no time for selling or growing a business. It's purely chasing goods through customs.
Well, fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, they call it teething problems. I'm just, you know, I think that's a real slap in the face, pardon me putting it like that, for companies who are really struggling to manage. But I suspect it will all sort itself out. It's just about the markets that have been lost in the meantime. And that's
the annoyance. The annoyance has come back to the early comment of I'm still waiting on HMRC. So after 5 weeks, the only response I get from HMRC is, well, we're not going to manage to hit our 30-day target, and we've not started processing the application yet. I'm not sure that's going to work when I fill my paperwork in for them, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're waiting for their Windows 95 update. Angela, good evening.
Hi, evening. One of my connections on LinkedIn, Anton Gunter, he runs Global Freight. He's been banging on for a couple of months now, saying that there are no issues with logistics. There's no issues with shipping if you've got the paperwork right and if you know what you're doing. And he's constantly putting posts out on LinkedIn saying to people, if you want to understand how to deal with it, get in touch with me. And it's quite interesting that not many people have actually commented, but I know he's been interviewed by the BBC and he's been in papers and what have you. Just really trying to press home that it's not as bad as it seems. So if anybody's struggling with logistics, get in touch with Anton Gunter.
Well, Angela, would you invite him on to one Thursday meeting, and we'll let people know and make certain that people get to hear about it. Because,
I will. I'm sure he'd love to come on. Yeah.
It's exactly the sort of thing we'd love to hear about. And, because an awful lot of what I suspect is going on, and I don't know, you know me, I'm an old hack, but I mean, I suspect that an awful lot of the frustration and sometimes anger is because a lot of it is just like Mark said, nobody really knows. I mean, nobody can give you a straight answer. You're running around in circles a lot of the time. And so a lot more heat is being generated than light. And so when you have got somebody who's calmly able to tell us what the situation is, then let's take some of the heat out of it and bring some more light in, and then everybody will be altogether better off. Anybody else got any heat? I mean, light to throw on the issue? Okay, well, listen, we've got 5 minutes. I want to throw something out there for a future discussion, because it's been on my mind for a long time. As you know, I started this business in September with the express aim of producing video news and features for the manufacturing sector. And I was kind of doing that sort of job at the manufacturer in magazine form and occasionally with video. But this is, this is my business, and I'm now out there. And I want to know, I'd like to know quite what you think the manufacturing sector is looking for in terms of news. And I'll give you a very black and white example. I hear constantly from some people that they, and Richard, this is not a swipe at you for turning your telly off, please, and for ripping up your BBC license. They don't want to hear any doom and gloom. That is heard all the time. Mainstream media, doom and gloom. And all we want is positive news about manufacturing. Well, I equate it really to the way waves come in. I mean, you can, I regard the little waves that come in, they're very positive, but the tide could still be going out. And if you don't pay attention to the tide, then you're going to be left exposed. You've got to understand, it's my view, I've got to, if you like, encompass in what I project both bits, the positive and the danger signs. And I'm just wondering if anybody, if it's worth a discussion about this, about what kind of self-image, if you like, manufacturing's looking for, whether it just wants to stick its fingers in its ears, which is sometimes how it feels, and whether that is something worth discussing. Somebody say just a couple of points to that now, because Richard, go on then.
I think the main one is manufacturing for the young kids is not seen as exciting. It's still seen as sort of, it's labor intensive, and it doesn't fit the bill of what kids are looking for. I'm working with Make UK. I'm an enterprise advisor. I'm trying to now work with Greater Manchester. I'm going to be talking about climate in the assemblies at the schools when they can go back. It's engaging with those kids, and it's to do with the STEM, the science, the technology, engineering and manufacturing. Is gets them to understand better what is it that we do today now, because it is exciting.
Richard, thanks. That's not quite the point I was looking for. Mark, you've got a point on this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the into the marketing side of things as well. But in marketing, you learn from the negatives, so you can never fail. So if the manufacturing sector could talk about the failures, but how you can learn from that and develop, I think that would be a good way of covering all bases.
Yeah, just this week, for instance, the 3 stories I've done was with Ewan. The reason he had to leave the meeting just now was because somebody saw the video that we did about the new bank he's doing the initial fundraising for, and he's got a meeting about a possible investment from that. That's terrific. I mean, the banking story was really good news. The story I did about the Airbus Eurostar Neo satellite, with a nice little video that went out yesterday. But then there was a story about Victor Edwards and the shambles around exporting and all of that. Some would say that that's being negative. I'd like to know if people think it worthy of discussion about, you know, how aware we need to be in the manufacturing sector of all the issues confronting us. If anybody's got a quick point on that, whether it's worth maybe having a discussion offline about this and seeing whether it's a topic worthy of discussion.
If I could just chime in, I've obviously put a lot of time into trying to broadcast good news about UK manufacturing, but in all honesty, I'd be happy for just news about UK manufacturing. So maybe I've tied my flag to one particular aspect, but there is so little coverage of manufacturing. The reason children don't aspire to work in it is nobody understands what it is.
And that's fair enough. And I can't talk about it at the moment, but I've got ideas and thoughts about in the next few months how that might develop along those lines. Mark, Lee, last word to you. I've got to close it in a second because it's 7 o'clock.
I completely agree with Mark Weymouth and also Richard about engaging kids. We went from zero to hero in 3 years, and trying to engage with the local press to say, hey, here's a good news story. We're just about to expand, triple in size. We want to recruit. We're going to create jobs. The local paper's response was, well, that'll be 1,800 quid for an advert in the paper. So trying to change people's perceptions is the main thing, and I'm a huge advocate of manufacturing. I'm a little bit rough and ready around the edges, but it is bloody sexy. And I'm going to dig out some photographs of me, and I'm black. None of you will recognize me. I'm covered in oil and grime, traditional tool making apprentice, tea boy, sweep the floor, clean the bloody extractor out, do this and that, hung from the rafters by chains. Proper old school place. It's chalk and cheese. If I drop my sandwich on the floor, then there's not a chance in hell I would be able to pick it up and eat it. If I was to drop my sandwich on the floor where I work now at MCNC, yeah, okay, you might be unlucky and get the odd bit of swarf in there, but 9 times out of 10, yeah, you could pick it up and eat it. We're not. I started off making 100,000 a week chainsaw blades as a 14-year-old with a hand grinder, just parting things off in a bucket. Now it's all sexy. We're connected to our phones. The guys love it. We're making EV gearboxes. We're making jet-powered surfboards. We're making... Oh, I've got to be careful. We're making all sorts of fantastic, sexy stuff. And the kids need to know about it.
When you were talking about those photographs of you hanging from chains and mud, grime and sweat and blood and oil, I could see some people getting physically excited by that. It's you see, it's in people's blood. Listen, we've got to go. This has been an absolutely wonderful meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. I really loved it. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you all next week. And think about what I said. I mean, it worries me because I want to make certain that I do my job properly by the sector. But Mark, I appreciate what you said. You just want to hear news. That's it. Yeah, I've got some thoughts on that.
Settle for news, but intelligent comment would be even better. So I totally agree with your aspiration.
Intelligent comment. No, that's a bridge too far. Anyway, listen,